today. And it doesn't sound, Greeny, as if the Vikings are planning to franchise tag quarterback Sam Darnold. That would cost them a little more than $40 million. And as you know, they drafted J.J. McCarthy last year in the top 10 of the draft to be their quarterback of the future. I believe there's a number at which the Vikings would bring back Sam Darnold, but that number is not $40 million. So they'll continue to try and see if they can work something out with him ahead of free agency next week, but it does look like Sam Darnold is poised to hit the market after his big season in Minnesota.
And we'll find out the answer to the question, is someone else willing to give him $40 million? Speaking of the Vikings, before we get into it, let's hear from Justin Jefferson. He had this to say about his quarterback of the future, whoever that might be.
I'm not sure who the quarterback is going to be. And just like I said last year, it truly doesn't matter personally to me. I'm going to try to make him look the best quarterback in the whole NFL. Just having that confidence in me and just, creating that connection with the quarterback, no matter who the quarterback is going to be. That's the main part.
So that's Justin Jefferson with McAfee and the guys yesterday. Again, Tim Hasselbeck and Dominique are up with us here. Let's quickly deal, Dominique, with the Minnesota side of this, because I'm more interested in hearing Tim talking about what the landscape of the league is. But just, Dominique, if you're making the decisions in Minnesota, having watched the year they just had with Sam Darnold, having made the decision that they made with the draft and everything else with McCarthy a year ago, how would you handle the situation?
Yeah, I think for most teams it's probably pretty hard to walk away from a quarterback that's had the success that Sam Darnold had last year. But I think the Vikings probably should walk away. They've had that success with a number of different quarterbacks, including Kirk Cousins recently. And if you have a coach as good as Kevin O'Connell and a receiver as good as Justin Jefferson, then you should never have to overpay for a quarterback. And I think what's going to end up happening is a team that really, really needs an answer at quarterback that doesn't have the benefit of the coach and the receiver are going to have to overpay for a quarterback. So they got to go with J.J. McCarthy, I think, and go ahead and move forward with him as the answer for the future.
Context on the season Darnold had, by the way, is interesting. Could we put up A38, please? Because in the 4 games that Darnold played this past year against Detroit and the Rams, he went 0-4, and he had a QBR that was 30 points lower than in all 14 other games in which they were 14-0, and he was absolutely spectacular. In the Week 18 and wild card losses, the Vikings scored a total of 18 points. So their season came completely apart at the very end. How things changed from that moment he was being hoisted on the shoulders of all of his teammates, and then the way that the whole thing came to an end. So Tim, let me come to you on this, because I'm thinking of the Raiders. That strikes me as an interesting one. Right, the Raiders they've got Tom Brady in the building.
They do.
They've got Chip Kelly in the building. They got Pete Carroll, obviously, who's an experienced and veteran coach and all the rest of that. And they're looking. If you're Tom Brady, you're an old quarterback, as you are yourself, Tim. Would you look at Sam Darnold? You know what I mean. A former quarterback. I didn't mean an old quarterback.
It's in a condescending tone. Just we go
a little bit.
That's not what I meant.
Insulted a little bit.
No, I didn't mean it that. No, yours and Tom Brady's histories are almost indistinguishable from one another's. Okay, aside. Would you look at Sam Darnold at the age of 27 and say, look what he did with that good coaching. I can turn this guy into a guy who's going to be a top-level NFL quarterback for the next 5 years and pay him big money? Would you do that if you were Tom Brady?
Yes, I would. Look, he's younger than Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. We're talking about a young player who threw 35 touchdowns. And as it relates to coaches that think, well, hey, could I coach him to do that? Look, every coach that's coaching in the National Football League, thinks they're better than the next guy. So if he did that in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell and that group, then yeah, why don't you think he can have that same success? I think you absolutely should look at it that way, especially if you don't have a quarterback. And so, look, I do think, and I think Dan alluded to this, look, and I think you did as well, Greeny, if the Vikings aren't willing to go to $40 million a year on Darnold, like there has to be somebody else that will, because there are teams that have gotten left out at quarterback and their seasons get ruined because of it. So, look, and we're talking about $40 million, which really is $10 million a year less than what the top-tier quarterbacks are making.
So let's talk about the teams we should be considering here, right? What places. Let's live in a world where Darnold doesn't get tagged today. Your expectation is that he will not.
That's my expectation.
So free agency or the legal tampering period begins on Monday. Who are the usual suspects here?
I think you mentioned the Raiders. I think that's legitimate. I think the Tennessee Titans, depending on what they want to do with the first pick in the draft, could be a team that looks at Sam Darnold. Tim mentioned he's 27 years old. You're not just bringing in a short-term Band-Aid. I mean, theoretically, we've seen one good year from Sam Darnold, but if you're bringing him in, you're convincing yourself that maybe this can be something like the long-term solution for us at quarterback. So Tennessee, you have the one pick. If you have interest in the one pick, you want to trade it. Maybe you bring in Sam Darnold to be your quarterback. You trade the one pick, move down a couple spots, get another great player. So I think the Giants will look into it. I think the Jets probably won't for reasons, based on the history that organization and he have together. I may be missing something off the top of my head, but those seem like the big players in the Sam Darnold market.
So finish it for me very quickly. Put him someplace. What is the best spot for this to happen next year?
Yeah, I think the Raiders make a lot of sense right now. It's a team that's been looking for some stability at the quarterback position. Not that Sam Darnold is the complete solution, but I think picking him up and maybe even going in and getting Shador also in the draft. We know how important that position is, so putting a bunch of resources there, I don't think it's a terrible idea. Sam may not like that, but I think it could be the answer for the Raiders.
Let me leave it there for the moment.
For that, Vikings have Sam Darnold. It would cost them about $40 million to tag him. As of now, it does not sound as if they will, which would mean that Sam Darnold would hit the free agent market next week. The Vikings, as we know, have J.J. McCarthy, who was their first-round draft pick last year. They feel like he'll be ready to go soon. And in terms of Darnold, they'd like to have him back, but I think there's a number that they wouldn't really go past to bring him back, and $40 million is beyond that number. So it looks like, barring something unforeseen here in the next 7 hours, Sam Darnold will be a free agent next week.
So look, we have sat here talking about all these teams that have all these terrible options at quarterback. The Vikings are a team that have some pretty good options. These are nice decisions to have to make. Do we want to bring Sam Darnold back or not? Do we want to build immediately around this rookie we believe in? Dominique is up with us early, and look who has joined the party. The big man, Booger McFarland, is with us here on Get Up. Great to see you, Boog. Well, let me start there. If you were running the Minnesota Vikings and you had this decision to make on bringing back Sam Darnold, what would you do?
Oh, I would definitely bring back Sam Darnold, Greeny, because here's the thing about it. And I know a lot of people are going to talk about the financials and what you thought of J.J. McCarthy, but here's the toughest thing to do. And you can ask a bunch of teams in this league. Is to find a quarterback that you can win with, a quarterback that you can believe in. And all Sam Darnold did was have a great season. And the marriage between Kevin O'Connell, the head coach, and Sam Darnold has proven to be one that was really, really beneficial to everybody involved. And I get it, the draft capital with JJ, I understand all that. But I was always taught to give Big Perk a little shout out. My grandmother told me this: a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. And I'm going to take the bird in the hand I got, known as Sam Darnold, and I'll figure out what to do with J.J. McCarthy.
It's so interesting because, Dominique, I'm thinking back, the Vikings, I'm looking up the dates here, it was the 29th of December. The Vikings beat the Packers 27-25, and they literally went into the locker room and carried Sam Darnold around on their shoulders. And all of you guys told me that never happens in the locker room. This is something you never, ever see. And then, at that moment, Sam Darnold was the Minnesota Vikings. And then after that, they lost 31-9 and 27-9, and their season came to a crashing end. So how does that factor in, Nick, when you're making decisions the way Booger is talking about? I mean, how much do you hold against him the way those last two games went?
Well, first of all, my grandma told me that Hennessy tastes like pound cake. I don't have nothing to do with what's going on, but I feel like we all have to talk about what our grandmas told us at some point in this show. I don't know what your grandma told you, Greeny, but mine told me Hennessy tastes like pound cake, and she was lying. But I do think that they should move on to J.J. McCarthy, because in this game, I think there are certain teams that the structure around Sam Darnold, including the coach, including two good receivers and one future Hall of Fame receiver in Addison and Justin Jefferson, a good offensive tackle, a respectable running game, and a great defense. I think that what happened with Sam Darnold last year, he's probably somewhere between what he was early in his career with the Jets and what he was with the Vikings. But I think overpaying for that when you have a quarterback in your building that you trust and that you drafted and that is inexpensive, and a system that you've shown to be able to manufacture like a pretty good baseline, I think the most prudent decision is to go to J.J. McCarthy and not overspend on a quarterback unless you're in a situation where you need your quarterback to make up for some deficiencies. I don't think that's what they need there in Minnesota.
Danny?
I mean, I agree with Dominique. I think the plan was to go with J.J. McCarthy. They had them both in camp last year, and they were treating Sam Darnold. They did the right thing with Sam Darnold. They treated him as a developmental prospect, and they developed him, and he had his best year. So if you're Minnesota, you don't necessarily let that distract you from what your plan was, which was J.J. McCarthy and the quarterback on the rookie contract, right, which allows you to pay Justin Jefferson more money than any other wide receivers make, which will allow you to sign other deals, maybe be aggressive in free agency. So I think you trust in your program and you trust in your head coach and your coaching staff that brought Sam Darnold along, that they can do the same thing with J.J. McCarthy and or a lower cost veteran that you might bring in to give J.J. McCarthy more time if he needs it, which they don't at this point know. They do not want someone standing in his way when he is ready, and that could be as soon as August.
Bug?
Here's the one thing that's going to happen all the time, guys, is that rookie quarterbacks outside of Jay Daniels are going to have growing pains. And so if you're the Minnesota Vikings, are you willing to deal with the growing pains of J.J. McCarthy while you're paying your star receiver $35 million a year? Because, Greeny, as you know, receivers only like two things, the ball and their money. And at some point, you got to get the ball to Justin Jefferson. So are you willing to deal with the growing pains of a rookie quarterback? That's the reason why. Because you're paying so much money to the receiver, I'm willing to pay Sam Darnold a reasonable amount. And when it comes to the quarterback, I'm not saying Sam Darnold is going to get 55 or 60 million, but I'd be willing to give Sam Darnold 45 on a 2 or 3 year deal. And J.J. McCarthy, you know what I'm going to tell you? Hey, you sit down, you rehab, and you learn. And we're always saying, Braz and Neek, hey, the best thing for a rookie quarterback is to chill out, relax, and learn. So why are we trying to rush J.J. McCarthy just because of the financials when we have a quarterback that's had a career year? Just because Sam Darnold had 2 bad games out of, 17 or 18? I think that'd be a mistake by Minnesota.
It also is worth considering all the years Sam Darnold had prior to the one good year, and the fact that maybe he was a product of this as opposed to the engine of it. Look, it's not about J.J. McCarthy being rushed. They're not going to rush J.J. McCarthy. They've shown that. It's about him being the guy when he's ready and them not wanting something in his way.
And just to put a finishing bow on all of this, when I told my grandmother that I wanted to be a sports announcer when I was 16 years old, she said, and I quote, "Why can't you be something good?" So that's sort of the way that went. And it could explain a lot of, yes, exactly. And I've been in therapy since I was in my 20s, and that might explain part of the reason why. All right, as we continue.
How's it going, everybody? Villa Sports Network here. Just want to thank you guys for your support on the channel. Thank you guys for watching the video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Also want to kind of remind you to don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment on the video if you like as well. But regardless of the fact, thank you again for your support, and hope to see you on the next video.